We just reviewed A, B, and C from yesterday. So today, we are going to add on to this chapter. Binomials have how many monomials? Two. Okay, so write this down. Binomials of the form A square root of B plus C square root of D write this down. All right, so in this form, they're the same, right? A, B, C, and D, they're in the same spot. What's the only difference about these? One subtraction and one addition. So an example of this, an example using real numbers would be 2 plus the square root of 7 and 2 minus the square root of 7. This is an example using real numbers. They are the same numbers. The only difference is that there's one plus sign and one minus sign. Every time there has to be a plus and a minus. These are called conjugates. Conjugates. Say conjugates. Conjugates. It's where the numbers are the same, but one's a plus and one's a minus. We need to know conjugates because if you look at example number 1, what's in the denominator? A square root. But this isn't 5 square root of 2. This is 5 plus square root of 2. So we can't just multiply the bottom and the top by the square root of 2 and get rid of it. It won't work like that. So if there's a plus or a minus with a square root in your denominator, we have to do what is called rationalizing using the conjugate. So what a conjugate is it's the same numbers, but what sign do you see right here? It's a plus. So the other one has to be a minus. So you have to multiply both the top and the bottom by the conjugate of 5 plus the square root of 2. The numbers stay the same. The only thing that changes is that we have to use a minus this time. So let's do an example, and you'll learn what I'm talking about. Okay? Let's multiply the bottom by 5 minus square root of 2. Put parentheses around it because we're multiplying. 5 minus the square root of 2. We also have to do the same to the top. So we're multiplying the denominator and the numerator by the conjugate. And the whole reason we're doing this is to get rid of the square root. Doing this is the only way to get rid of the square root. So, in order to multiply, if we're just looking at the top, 3 times all of this means we have to distribute. So let's do just the top first. 3 times 5 is 15. But remember, this square root is like a force field. You cannot multiply outside with inside. You can only multiply outside with outside, inside with inside. So 3 goes to the outside of square root of 2. So it's a positive times a negative, which is a negative. And then it's 3 times the square root of 2. We just distributed the top. Do not do 3 times 2 and put it in as 6. That is not right. Okay, now let's do the bottom. But here's the thing. It's a binomial and a binomial, which means we have to, how do I multiply this? When there's 2 and 2, what do we call it? What's it called? It's 4 letters. The shortcut is 4 letters. Huh? FOIL. FOIL. First comes first, outer, outer, inner, inner, last, last. Do you see that everything we've learned this year is being used? Yes. So, first times first, 5 times 5 is 25. Outer, first times first, outer times outer. So that's a 5 times negative square root of 2. So it's a negative 5 square root of 2. 5 times square root of 2. And it's a negative. Inner, inner. So this is positive 5 times square root of 2. So it's a plus. No, 5 square root of 2. Because 5 does not have a square root. So it has to go to the outside. Inner and inner. Outer and outer. Last. Now, Vanessa. Negative 2. You see right here how there's a plus and a minus? A plus times a minus is always a minus. Square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is square root of 4, which is 2. This works in the same way as last night's homework. Square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is just 2. Okay? Now we have to simplify. Steve, what do you see in the denominator that might cancel out? Isn't this, look guys, y'all have to pay attention. Minus 5 plus 5 is how many?
10.
No. 0.
Minus 5? Oh.
So this whole middle piece right here cancels out. AKA, there are no what? Square roots. That was the whole point. Our square roots had to eliminate.
Oh, you're so smart.
So now, it was minus 5 plus 5. Minus 5 plus 5 is 0. Okay? So now, let's reduce. It comes down to 15 minus 3 square root of 2. That's just the numerator. I just rewrote this. Jacoby, are you writing this down? All I did was rewrite the numerator. Now in the denominator, all I have left is 25 minus 2, which reduces to be what? 23. And that's your answer. Because this one doesn't have a square root. Okay? This doesn't have a square root. You cannot combine 15 and 3 because 15 does not have a square root. The 3 is attached to the square root. Now, there's a shortcut. How many of y'all like shortcuts? Okay, I'm going to show you a shortcut. Let's do example number 2. Now, the conjugate, remember, there's always one positive and one negative. So if there's a positive in your question, you have to use the negative to get rid of it. So if we want to simplify this, there's a positive, which means I have to multiply by its conjugate, which is a negative. So you have 3 minus square root of 5, and then do it to the top 2. Okay, let's do just the top. Distribute. 3 times 3 is, and then 3 times negative square root of 5 is minus 3 square root of 5. Did you remember how over here those two middle terms canceled out? It's going to cancel out every time. That's the whole point of using a conjugate. So you don't have to do that middle part. Okay? So you only have to do first and last and last. So first times first was 3 times 3.
9.
And in a conjugate, listen closely, in a conjugate, there's always a plus and a, well, a plus times a minus is always what? Minus. Always. So this sign is always going to be a minus. So first times first, 3 times 3 is 9. Always going to be a minus. Square root of 5 times the square root of 5 is just 5. Okay, so let's reduce. The top stays the same. 9 minus 3 square root of 5. What's 9 minus 5?
4.
That's it. Okay, we're still practicing. Yes.
So on the bottom, when you like
Because the square root of 5 times the square root of 5 is the square root of what? Which is? Presley. Because I wanted you to see that that middle part is going away. And that will happen every time. That's why I did that. I wanted you to see that you can use this shortcut, but you need to know the long way first. Okay, that it kind of goes away. All right, here we go. Number 3. In a conjugate, there's always a minus and a positive. Well, in this case, there's a minus. So the conjugate I'm going to write has to be positive. So 2 plus square root of 6. 2 plus square root of 6. Distribute the top. 5 times 2 is 5 times the square root of 6. That's a positive. So positive 5 square root of 6. Now in the bottom, do the first times the first. 2 times 2 is 4. Our sign is always going to be negative because a negative times a positive is a negative. I didn't change away. I used the same way I did over here. But this way, I just wanted you to see where that goes. I wanted you to see how that cancels out. Okay? So first times first is 4 minus square root of 6 times square root of 6 is just 6. So this becomes 10 plus 5 divided by 6 over negative 2.